Good evening, everyone. I am so thrilled to welcome you all to the YSC Summit Pajama Party. My name is Marlo Esch. I am an oncology certified nurse and an ASECT certified sexuality counselor. And I am also a breast care nurse navigator in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am also a young adult breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed at the age of 29. And since my own diagnosis, I've been really passionate about sexual health and wellness in survivorship. And so it's a true pleasure to be moderating this session tonight. I'm really excited to be able to introduce you to the amazing Dr. Catalina Lawson. Over the last 2 decades, Dr. Catalina has been a clinical psychologist, researcher, and professor in the field of psycho-oncology. Her research has focused on developing and testing e-health interventions that address sex and relationships after cancer. Dr. Catalina integrates psychology, attachment, neuroscience, and tantra to address sexual changes for individuals and couples in therapy and group programs. We definitely encourage you to learn more about her and her work at her website, www.drcatalina.org, which we'll put in the chat for you guys. This evening, Dr. Catalina will be guiding us through our sex lab. We will be learning about the foundation of sex after cancer, strategies to reclaim pleasure, and ways to connect with our own sexuality. We encourage you to engage in this session however you feel most comfortable, but we do recommend finding a quiet, private place to connect with your mind and your body, hopefully in some comfy pajamas. Before we get started, I just have a couple of quick housekeeping things to let you guys know about. First, this is being recorded and it will be available for everyone who has registered for the summit. It'll be available on demand for 30 days. And then additionally, I'm going to encourage everyone to place their questions in the Q&A section. We have that chat section that is also available to you guys. We want you to use that throughout the session to connect with each other. But if you have a specific question that you would like Dr. Catalina to address, if you could put it in that Q&A section, that would be great. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time at the end, hopefully about 15 minutes or so, to get a lot of those questions answered for you. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Catalina.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Marlo. All right, hi everyone. My name is Dr. Catalina, and tonight I really, as Marlo said, I really want this to be an opportunity for us to just share. This is wherever you guys are in the country or the world, use this as let's create this to be a safe space. Please ask questions throughout it. That helps me. And I really just think so much of my goal tonight is for us to just open up the conversation, explore, and allow ourselves to actually rediscover and reclaim pleasure. So that's the goal. Feel free throughout this, if you guys have any questions or afterwards you want to touch base, feel free to contact me all these different ways. You'll see that again at the end. So today, I really hope that you leave tonight's PJ party with an understanding of how cancer and treatment impact sexuality. An appreciation of how prevalent these sexual changes after cancer are. We're going to talk about various strategies to reclaim pleasure and desire after cancer. And my goal is that at the end of this, you feel connected to your body and empowered to reclaim your sexuality. Cancer takes away a lot, but it does not have to take away your sexuality. So, what does sexuality mean to you? And please just start putting things in the chat so you guys can start sharing this. But oftentimes when people say sex, they think of steamy sex scenes and generally intercourse or some type of course, outer course or something. And that is so not what only sexuality is. Sexuality is the intersection of our values, your personality, how we communicate, not just verbally, but how we walk into a room, how we move our bodies, and certainly how we see our bodies. And the way I ultimately define sexuality is that it's all of these things And again, not existing in a bubble. I think it's too much of when we think about sexuality, it's just flat out. And the majority of the research is based on Caucasian heteronormative research. And again, and what you see in media is that as well. Absolutely not. Sexuality is very much so based on your sociocultural context, your sociocultural context. It is so individual. And I think that that's super, super important. But my core definition of sexuality is that it is how we connect to our bodies and then choose to connect with others, however that is. Sharing space over online, however that is, it is about connection. All right, so I just want you to kind of keep that in your forefront as we go through this. So we know that estimates between 40 to 100% of cancer survivors are going to experience some type of sexual change, particularly when we're talking about the below the belt cancers, and that these sexual changes are complex. Oftentimes it's a chicken or the egg kind of situation. And physical as well as psychological concerns interact and also compound and exacerbate one another. Pain is a good model of this. Oftentimes, certainly you can experience, particularly we'll talk about some of the postmenopausal changes that come with chemotherapy treatment. And through that, women may experience vaginal pain. And even before they have any touch or insertion in their vagina. But that image of that pain, what do we do when we get pain? We immediately clench. And so, unfortunately, oftentimes too many women are not prepared for that change. And so they try to engage in any type of sexual activity. And once insertion with a hand or any toy or penis enters, then pain is experienced, anxiety heightens, and it now forms this loop. Okay, and unfortunately, that is a loop that we now know can last years after treatment. So this is really complex, which means just like anything that's complex, it's not going to be a linear fix either. And when we look at sexual concerns, they are one of the top quality of life concerns in cancer survivorship that we just do not talk enough about. So I'm super excited that you guys are here and giving yourself this space. The best thing that we do know is that these sexual changes are manageable. Okay. And the more we heighten awareness, particularly early on in treatment about this, it's about preparing, managing expectations, and increasing flexibility. So much in life is, and the way our bodies is when we're talking about this connection, is building our tolerance for this discomfort, whether that discomfort be physical, emotional, psychological, or cultural. Okay. And that's really what we're going to try and do. So I'm going to review a bunch of concrete as well as psychological and behavioral strategies to manage these side effects. So who here experiences early menopause? That's a little doozy that particularly for this group is probably, I would assume, one of the worst things. Menopause sucks anyways, but when it comes 20 years or 30 years early, it sucks even worse. And the thing is that, when it comes naturally, you have some, like generally it can take 5 to 10 years of perimenopause, that pre-party before the big party coming on. But in the context of cancer, it happens quickly. And so, we know that the symptoms of menopause, such as vaginal dryness, tearing, itching, irritation, and then, medicine puts this great term on it, vulvovaginal atrophy. Atrophy, anything, talking about anything with our vaginas. I just feel so grossed out about it. Really pisses me off. Anyways, that and pain while urinating, frequent UTIs as if those weren't great beforehand, and certainly hot flashes. If you guys experience these, definitely commiserate in the chat, because these are some of the things that, unfortunately,
I was just going to say, lots of hands raised. Lots of hands raised.
Right? Awesome.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It's just one of these things that it's just like, oh, well, it's just a part of it. Expect it, But these are the things that actually, one, tend to linger and tend to create the most distress, you know? So certainly between those as well as actual surgery, mastectomy, regardless of how small or large your surgery is, our breasts are a major part of our identity, our femininity, and absolutely a big portion of what we associate with eroticism and sexuality, again, because of how society and norms have actually raised us. So, of course, there's going to be implications of this. And the biggest ones are decreased desire and pain during penetration. And as if orgasms, there wasn't a big enough gap for women already, those can also be more absent or more muted. Awesome. I know these are all great things. So let's just go ahead and acknowledge the reality of these things. Okay. And certainly cancer treatment is not just the physical. It is absolutely the stress and the changes to how you're actually perceiving your body. The fear and uncertainty, particularly in survivorship. We know that fear of cancer recurrence is the number one concern when people finish treatment, is when is it coming back, and waiting for that shoe to drop and living in that context, particularly as a young survivor. Having that threat of mortality there is very hard for others to relate to or get them to relate. So I'm not sure how many of you out there are actually just tired of trying to get people to try to relate to this. But certainly the anxiety, depression, all of those are going to affect, again, between the treatment, the cancer itself, all of these hormonal changes. It's so tricky being a woman because our hormones go crazy. And again, decreased libido, distracted during sex, as if it wasn't already hard to keep our head in the game and really just try to lean in the pleasure. It really is only in the last, I'll be honest, I actually think in the last decade that we have actually began to normalize and actually make it even a thing that women experience pleasure during sex. So, and certainly the number one coping strategy our body experiences amidst any stress is avoidance. Get me the hell out of there. So what you end up seeing is that women will tend to avoid not just sexual activity, but cuddling, kissing. The number of patients I've had who no longer sleep in the same bed as their partner, and it's been a decade, and again, these are just things that start and then become the norm. Okay, so if you're experiencing all these, absolutely know you are not alone. There are lots of points throughout the phases of treatment that absolutely can affect all of the different areas and phases of sexual response. Okay. And so keeping that in mind, and also knowing that our sexual response, this is just an idea of the different common phases, but we know that it's not just linear. Okay. And so keeping that in mind, but there are so many opportunities for our sexuality to be impacted. But the good news is that there is strategies to manage this, okay? Communication is key. And while we say that, and obviously I'm like a loudmouth and I talk a shit ton, it is harder than it seems. So when you hear all these people like, you got to talk about sex, you got to talk about sex, as if that is the easiest thing in the world. It is easy as pee for me. It is not for the majority of people. Again, we do not live in this magical bubble of just sex positivity. That's just not the reality. And so in a lot of relationships, talking about sex is not the norm. Talking about sex during sex absolutely is not the norm. So cut yourself some slack when people say, just talk about it. You got to talk about it. You got to talk about it. I'm going to teach you how to talk about it, though. All right. Treat the underlying causes when you can. And again, I'm going to briefly, really quickly go through some of the medical and behavioral things you can do, but I really want to get to more of the psychosocial somatic things. So we do focus more on pleasure and building this desire. Okay. Get information. The reality is that only about a quarter, 25% of individuals who do experience these sexual changes are going to experience the stress and need to see someone like me or a physical therapist or a specialist in sexual health. Okay. The majority of these things are most people have a lot of resources already. It is using those resources and integrating them to manage these specific distressors, okay? And particularly in the context of younger breast cancer patients. Again, life didn't give you enough chance to have the opportunities to acquire these skills so naturally. And so honestly, it's just a crash course. All right. Okay. So really quickly, and again, you will get my slides, so look at them there, but there's certain things you can do for genital pain: vaginal moisturizers, vaginal gels, vaginal lubricants, and do not, please, for the love of God, use Aquaphor or KY on your vagina. They're crap. There's so many better things out there. Go to Pleasure Chest. My recommendation is Pseudo, and I'm not even getting paid by them. But please use lube. Lube is your friend. I've been wanting to make this like bungee system on the bed where you can just pop it out, because lube is your friend. Okay. Use it frequently. All right. Normalize using lube, actually. All right. Okay. Kegels, absolutely. Mona Lisa, Kegels are good throughout. I'm doing them now. Feel free to do them right now. It's a little bit of nobody knows you're doing it. And I'm like, whoop, doop. There's this lady on TikTok who does these Kegel exercises, and she's like, do, 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 do. It's like a trance, like it's like a DJ night. But again, this is an opportunity for you to go right to your core and engage and reconnect with it while strengthening. And there's a ton of benefits to Kegels. So Mona Lisa Touch is a newer type of treatment. It's a laser treatment that really is trying to take away old vaginal tissue cells and develop new ones. It's not covered by insurance yet. There hasn't been any long-term studies just yet, specifically on cancer survivors. It's not FDA approved just yet. But so you really do need to speak with your gynecologist, preferably one who has experience working with cancer patients. I know, Marlo, you're in Milwaukee. Northwestern has some people who are doing this specifically, and they actually are doing some trials there with some cancer patients in Chicago, so there's definitely more going on with that. Okay. And certainly hormone replacement therapy. There is a lot of misinformation out there. And Marlo, I'm sure you've experienced this with your patients coming with it. And just generally, again, same thing like with chemo. There's a lot of horror stories out there, but when used properly, HRT absolutely can help. Okay. And certainly lots of other vaginal estrogen, testosterone, all these different therapies out there, okay? All of those, talk to your OB-GYN. Again, preferably one who, and if you're in any major city, and even if you're not now with telehealth, you can get consults in your state, okay? Because it really is good, particularly for younger women, to work with clinicians who know the interactions between the long-term side effects of treatment and where you are developmentally. Okay, treatment options, other treatment options, certainly planned sex. This is planned scheduled sex. People think isn't spontaneous. It's not as romantic. Screw that. You know what? Planned sex always leads to more sex. It's just simple math. And plan it for when you're not super tired. Nighttime, I don't know. Again, you don't have to be much past your 30s to realize that middle of the day, afternoon delights started to become a thing for a reason, because who the heck has energy after the end of the day anyways? Take your meds early on. And really, again, and we're going to talk about this, really focusing on your connection, using mindfulness techniques, playful touch, and not going straight for the cojones, not going straight for any like our typical erogenous zones, okay? Slow burn. It's all about that. Sensate Focus is a behavioral therapy. It's one of the most effective. We're going to talk a little bit about this when I get into some of the somatic exercises, but certainly, trying different positions. whether you pick out one of those card games or you watch some good porn, get creative, get funky. And absolutely, particularly when we're talking about body image issues, if you don't feel comfortable wearing beautiful lingerie or having your back away, your chest away from your partner, so doing, where is it? Like 8, 9, 7, 6, those those ones down there, like those are some great ones, where you're really not too in their face and you don't feel too exposed. Again, sexuality and is our experience to determine. So you move your body in the position that feels best and most comfortable for you. Okay. And teaching your partner and guiding them where that is. So when we think what the central change to sexuality is, I firmly believe it's connection. And this is connection to your body and connection to others. Okay. And this is at the core. And this is where, when we think like, and I'd love to hear from you guys as far as what actually shifted in your connection, whether it be with your body or with others during your treatment. But managing these changes, again, your body knows first. So the reality is that when you are one from that first sentence, you have cancer. I don't know any cancer survivor who doesn't remember that day and that moment. You may not remember all of your treatments. You may not remember how crappy surgery was. You may not remember all of those. It's very rare that I've met that you meet a cancer survivor who doesn't remember when they were diagnosed. And because from that point on, life changed. And that's the reality. From that point on, your body was in protection mode. And when it's in protection mode, it's not in connection mode. Okay. And so the first thing we need to do is ground. Okay. Grounding. And that's where everything starts off with. Okay. Cancer, unfortunately, because it is so prolonged, when our body is in constant protection mode, it is in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode persistently. Our body really only needs a few weeks to acclimate to that for that to be the new norm. Once that train has left the station, it is just going to keep on going. All of the cognitions and reactions are going to continue as well, and they become automatic. And so unfortunately, because of the long-termness here, this is where so much of particularly something so intimate as our sexuality actually can begin to shift. Okay. So throughout this, in this automatic survival mode, our body tends to react just to emotions. So I feel scared. I feel anxious. I'm worried. And a reaction. Again, oftentimes it's going to be avoidance, And so the one thing to remember is that our emotions are not facts. And that if we sit, our average, and again, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but on average, we know that when we first experience an emotion, that it's on average lasts about 90 seconds of that emotion. But then if we don't do anything to bring it in, exacerbate it, generally that emotion will begin to shift. Parts of our brain activity will shift. Our muscles will shift. Your actual physiological experience of that emotion will shift if you allow it to. And this is where mindfulness comes, because what you're basically doing is you are witnessing that emotion, the experience of that emotion, and then you're moving through it. Okay. The more you allow yourself to just witness and experience the emotion, one, the more you realize your emotion is absolutely yours as well as it is passing. So when it really, really sucks and those emotions are super, super intense and scary and dreadful, and you don't even want to share them with anyone else because that would be really fucking evil. That's how you feel. Know that it will pass. And so that it is by witnessing and moving through this, our brain learns experientially And so by sitting with these really hard emotions, you're teaching your body, I can handle it. And you're also learning that it shifts. Those are the main things that we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay. So even as I'm talking, notice I'm spaz. So like notice how your body reacts. Are you like, what the fuck is she talking about? Or are you like, oh, and notice I'll change the pace. All of these things are my nervous system talking to yours, wherever the hell you are in the world. This is how it works. This is how beautiful connection is. This is how smart our bodies are, that we can actually connect like this. It's amazing. It's amazing the technology our body has. So one of the other things to remember is that negative thoughts are natural. In the cancer context, in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was this whole like optimism, say it makes cancer survivors live longer. It was about 10, 15 years of research that all got debunked. There was this big positive psychology movement that really ended up putting so much pressure on cancer survivors, and breast cancer survivors are with all of the walks and the marches. Unfortunately, there can be all this, you're such a warrior, and that can actually place a lot of pressure on just having shitty days. So what we now know is that it is about actually feeling the feels when you feel them, acknowledging them and moving through them. Talking to your doctor when you are having pains, because the reality is that cancer does suck. I don't care how you spin it. Nobody would want it, and so you're going to have some negative worries or fears. And yes, sometimes they may be overwhelming. So this is where it's building your tolerance, not trying to just stuff them away and say, you just got to be positive. You're just so strong. Oh, I'm sure again, raise your hands if you're like, shut the hell up. I'm so over it. And what you end up doing again, you withdraw from those people. Just, it happens somewhere along the line. People are too positive. It's annoying. You don't need cheerleaders, not for that long of a time. It's great at the beginning, maybe. It's great at the end. Maybe it's always nice to maybe get some gifts. But in general, know that it is natural that you're going to have these negative thoughts. So your body is doing the best that it can. That's it. That's it. It's just doing the best that it can in that moment. So giving yourself grace while you are moving through this experience, and particularly as you are reintegrating and figuring out how you integrate this flat out for most traumatic experience into your now. Oh, did you hear that, Marlo? Okay, I don't know. Okay, all right. Okay, so it's just doing the best. So throughout this, know that your body is in autopilot. It's taking care of you. So this idea that you have a choice, like again, most people don't even, I can't hear you. If you're talking, Marlo, I can't hear you. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. But you have choices. And the reality is that oftentimes when your body's so in survival mode, your brain and the thoughts in your brain are they're just going. So you're not conscious of your choices. Okay. And that's why we got to slow it down. We just got to slow it down so that you can heighten your awareness. Ask yourself, what am I needing? What am I feeling? And then through that, you can choose how you want to respond. All right, let's get down into the nitty gritty now. How to reclaim desire. This is my integration of what I know from neuroscience, applying a biopsychosocial approach to reclaiming desire, and what we know about desire being spontaneous and responsive, all of these things. So this is my kind of integration. Love for us to chat. My goal is for us to have 15 minutes at the end. So feel free to demolish this if you say, I don't believe any of this, but trust me, it's all evidence-based. Okay, so the first, my things didn't work. Oh, well, let's just put it all up and you'll see it. Okay, so the first is that we need to self-regulate. Okay, this is the grounding. And from that place, and only from that place, that has to be first. Okay, we've got to ground first. Then you can acknowledge, empathize, assert. This is where you're going to play and figure out what's going on, make a choice and act. By doing that, that builds your self-trust. which then allows you to feel safe enough to explore and get curious of what actually brings you pleasure, because that is an ever evolving experience. And then ultimately leading that to partner pleasure too. This is not a linear path. This is cyclical. It's not like one just goes to the other. This is all happening. Okay, so these are the components that I want you to begin to bring focus to, and noticing even through this, and I'm going to break each one of these down. Which actually do you resonate with? Where do you feel like you have the most concern with? And oftentimes I'll just tell you, it depends on where people are in their own development and their own journey. Okay, so what do I mean by self-regulation? Oftentimes you'll hear things like grounding. And that's really what this is. It's about grounding your nervous system. So just do this exercise with me. Doesn't matter where you are and who you're with. Just say out loud. Answer my questions. 5, what do you see? I see bamboo. 4, what do you hear? My annoying voice. 3, what are you touching? My pajama pants. 2, what do you smell? I think my hair gel. And 1, what do you taste? Iced tea. Okay. And look, Marlo's smiling. Oftentimes, if you're smiling or if you're laughing, that means you just engage your parasympathetic nervous system, and you immediately switch the activity of your brain from your amygdala to your prefrontal cortex. And you've now begun to get yourself in the present right here. This is one of the most efficient grounding strategies. This is you connecting to your body. This is what we're talking about when I say self-regulate. Okay. Other ways you can do it is deep breathing, deep diaphragmatic breathing. So when you exhale, our diaphragm is right here underneath our chest. So when we take big belly breaths first, that actually flattens our diaphragm to then allow air to come into our chest. And then instead of how we typically breathe, where we're chest breathers, and everybody breathes really, 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 really fast. Because again, when we are in fight mode, everything gets small and all of our blood goes to our core, our muscles tense, everything is trying to roly-poly it, okay? Or when we're fighting, our body breathes really, really fast, okay? All of this is just generally chest breathing. We're not getting enough oxygen in our blood. And so our body is just, it's actually working overtime. All right. So breath work is the first, it's one of the big entryways or portals to actually connecting with your body. Okay. It's just really regulating your breath, Kundalini, but just really just beginning to even just take 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths. I train my clients to, once we start doing diaphragmatic breathing, and I'll just take you through it right now. Take an exhale. Put your hand on your belly and your hand on your chest. Inhale through your nose. Feeling your belly rise. Now your chest. Roll your shoulders, move your head, and exhale. Pushing on your chest. Now your belly. 2 more times. Inhale for 4. And rolling your chest. And exhale. Pushing it out. And moaning, actually that moaning, and last one. Feeling your diaphragm, now your chest. And exhaling. When you moan and singing, that is a form of sound therapy, that the vibrations actually also help regulate your nervous system. So if you look at traditions, whether it be Buddhism and Christianity and Judaism, in most every tradition, there's singing, there's chanting, there's a call and response. All of that is way one to use a community and use that collective energy to unify and support and regulate. Okay, it's beautiful, particularly around listening and using sound to really regulate, I think, is super, super underrated. Holding some ice, particularly as we're getting into the warmer weather, holding a piece of ice in your hands or flat out, if you can, just ducking your head in a bucket of ice with water. That feels so good. Putting at the end of your shower, putting it on as cold as it can, shocking your system immediately will bring it down. Have you ever tried that, Marlo? Just
I
ice
was
anything ice?
when I'm having my hot flashes, it's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The contrast,
Yeah.
because what happens when you put your hand in when you have ice? What does it help you do?
It centers my focus, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Because again, right there, like the one thing with cold ice, particularly when it's in your hand, is it hurts initially. So you're not focusing on, holy cow, I'm sweating through my t-shirt. You're focusing on, am I gonna get a blister from this ice? It immediately draws your attention to. Okay.
Mhm.
So absolutely doing things like this is why polar bears and plunge pools. So if you go to saunas and you plunge pool, that's great. Going out and listening. Last night I fell asleep to I said, hey Google, play beach waves. And so it had like lots of ocean, listening to nature. And again, this is where thinking about how we've evolved. Humans, we're like late to the party. And so nature's been around and coexisting and supporting one another. There's so much there for us to also gain from and to refuel from. Taking walks, and again, particularly if you're a spaz like me and your natural pace is up, your body's wanting to. Okay. You're wanting to give it something else to do. Okay. That's the thing. When you are in such auto mode and your body learns to fight, flight, or freeze, again, particularly post-traumatic events, this is where what you're wanting to do when triggered is give your body something else to do. What it's doing before when it fights, flights, or freeze is just the same. This is engaging your procedural memory. It just needs to play that same loop over and over. What you're trying to do is give it different pathways. Okay. All of these are different pathways when you're getting triggered. Enjoy drink or food. Again, anything that engages one of those senses, do it right then. All right. So it's the first thing to do. I'll be honest, the biggest things in the moment are the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, breathing, ice. Those are some of the easiest things that I think, that are the best to do are the things you need nothing to do and that you can do anywhere. That's why mindfulness is the most effective. Do not think you need to sit and have a candle burning or anything like that. You literally can be in the toilet at work and have a mindful moment. Okay. All right. So now it is acknowledge, empathize, assert. Okay. These are the 3 steps that I teach all of my clients to do when now you have regulated. Now it is time to acknowledge, empathize, assert. And acknowledges, this is where you are acknowledging and seeing and hearing yourself. What am I experiencing right now? What sensations? What's my body doing? What am I thinking? What emotions am I feeling? Okay. This is where you are seeing and experiencing yourself. Too often in our society, we've been socialized to look for acknowledgement and validation outside. We need to start first by giving this to ourselves. So acknowledging what's happening to me now, breaking it down to 2 questions I generally think we need to ask is, what am I feeling or what am I needing? Okay. And then empathize. This is where, particularly if you're feeling overwhelmed, this is where you give yourself some grace. But if you're having overwhelming negative thoughts, that you weigh the evidence for it and the evidence against it. And again, the goal isn't to spin it positive or spin it negative. It is to neutralize it, depower it, okay? Maintain a bit more control. This is where you are empathizing with yourself. You're not crazy. You have these negative thoughts for a reason, okay? They didn't come out of nowhere. And they may not be all of the truth as well. So it's just about balancing that out. Okay. And then assert. Now, this is where you need to actually do something. Okay. Now it's all right. So, you know what? Yep. I'm super, super scared. I'm going in for a mammogram tomorrow. Going to find out the results. I don't know what they're going to be. So I'm going to prepare myself as best I can. And so right now I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to really savor this iced tea. asserting right in that moment, doing something that is engaging one of your five senses, that you are making a conscious choice right then in the present. Okay. This is again shifting that loop. You are taking action right there. All right. Okay. So now we've done these things. So now that begins to build self trust. Okay. I know I have 5 minutes. So the thing I want you guys to think about is how much do you actually trust yourself? You know, from if you were to grade yourself from 0 to 100, 0 is no trust at all, to 100, just put in the chat how much you actually trust yourself. So you can see what you feel and give voice to it. And if today is a 2, it's okay. And if today's 100, awesome. Anywhere along the line. The keys to building self-trust is start small, start often, and really absolutely start easy. Fuck yeah or fuck no. If you don't know, it's a fuck no. If there is ambivalence, it's a fuck no. If you're like, it's a fuck no. Because again, this is where I say play the C card all you really want. You didn't choose to have that. Now you get to choose what exactly it is you do want. And it is in making choices that are in alignment with your needs, wants, and desires that you begin to build up that self-trust. Okay. Start small, start often, be realistic. All right. Now, self-pleasure is the best pleasure. So, what does self-pleasure mean to you? Please start putting that in the chat. When I talk about self-pleasure, of course, absolutely, this includes masturbation, but not just this. I freaking love to take long showers. I love to get licks on my feet with my dog. I know, like it feels really good. She's a good licker. I love to play with my hair. I love putting padding my moisturizer on, like a lot of the Asian women in Asia do, like really gentle and giving myself that treat. Those are things that provide me pleasure. And what gives us pleasure absolutely changes, as does what stops us. You know, to get us to a place of pleasure, we actually got to think that we deserve it, that there's a reason for it. And if we don't think there is, we're not even going to explore it. And this is why we got to first really connect with our body first and build up that trust, because everybody deserves it, and you absolutely can explore it. Okay. But it is not easy. All right. So thinking about what actually supports you, talking about it often, doing it in private, starting small, starting there. Okay. So when we think about pleasure, one of the things I want you to just start wherever you are, just start touching your hand. Start actually seeing start massaging it, or going really slow, giving it little spiders. Start noticing, what does that sensation actually feel like? Is your palm sweaty? Are you noticing that the more you touch it, maybe it gets a little bit tingly? Are you noticing that, like for me, as I'm going down, the tips of my fingers aren't as warm? What actually are you noticing in your sensations? So as you are doing that, this is where I want you to just begin to explore your body's pleasures and sensations. Some people call this pleasure mapping. Again, what I referred to earlier was sensate focus, just beginning to explore what actually feels good. I recommend staying away from the typical erogenous zones of your vaginal area as well as your boobies, where we've got so much skin everywhere in our hair that I actually just start with really just touching. And again, scanning your body. Okay. I oftentimes doing this with your eyes closed and asking yourself what feels pleasurable, painful, ticklish, tingly, and just giving yourself that. And also noticing, are there parts that you're actually avoiding? Okay. Because that's actually pretty typical too. And then really set the scene. Sex toys are your BFFs, and I totally forgot to bring mine. Bringing feathers and vibrators, lube, pleasure bombs that start tingling on their own. All of those things are amazing. And know that thoughts will come up and judgments may come up. and just note them and say, I'm thinking. Okay. Just note them. This is your party. Natural. Sometimes thoughts crash your party. Doesn't mean the party has to end. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give it a couple more minutes and then we're going to go into questions. So really, the idea here now is that as you begin to explore your own body and connect with it, now you begin to ground and co-regulate with your partner. Okay. This is where I can't go too much more into this, unfortunately, but this is really where this is how you begin to, as long as one person's grounded, you two can co-regulate with each other to be more attuned. All right. And that's what's really necessary for juicy sex. Okay. So really, knowing and being honest that it is during stress that we revert to our go-tos. It isn't easy. And if you are in acute stress, know that this may not be the time to actually work on a lot of those relationship issues. Be realistic, pick your battles, focus on connection, leaning in rather than leaning away. So really share your concerns as you feel comfortable. You do have to actually prioritize this. Your body doesn't want to. Protection, when it's disconnected, again, it's protecting you. Like you just went through cancer, it had to protect you. So know that it is going to be intentional, effortful, and unfortunately, maybe uncomfortable to actually reclaim your pleasure. Okay. But you got to prioritize it and explore, take the time, but it will take time. And why do a lot of people not talk about it? Shame. That's it. Shame. That's the easiest way to say it. All of these other things, yes, yes, yes. And at the top of it, I just think it's shame. Okay. And so it's just unfortunate. It doesn't have to be that way. All right. So start the conversation, really starting it off by asking yourself, how sexually satisfied am I? And really begin to explore what's changed about how you connect with your body, what brings me pleasure, what arouses me now, how does my body feel with my partner, without my partner, and what helps me be more energized, more relaxed, more open during intimacy. And to really have the conversation, one, prepare for it. This isn't easy. Don't just do it. If you don't have it, do it often. And know what your fears, desires, and boundaries are for the conversation. And actually, I recommend to start off the conversation with it. Okay. I do a ritual of creating sacred space for my couples. And certainly I can do that in another time with you guys. Ask permission for your partner. Hey, I really want us to talk about us. And you don't have to say intimacy or sex, but just prepare them. So when's a good time for you? Use I statements, be open to questions, and really be grounded throughout. Take breaks as you need them. Okay. And absolutely reach out if you need to. So have the conversation. Just start. Know that connection is key. Know that safety fosters this curiosity, which promotes ecstasy. All right. And that we all need and absolutely deserve intimacy and connection. Okay. So I went through as fast as I could. Sorry. I hope that now let's take some questions, and I'd love to hear what people feel.
Wonderful. Yeah, that was wonderful. Lots of really good comments and questions. People were talking about ways that they feel pleasure. Some of the stuff you mentioned, the hot showers, having their hair, played with and pressed long baths, turning off from technology, which I felt like was a really good, important one. Someone wants to know what you would do if your partner's more interested in sex and you have a really low libido or desire. How do you kind of balance?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again. I was looking at the chat. Say that again. How do you balance if you have low libido?
Yeah. So what do you do if your partner is more interested in sex and your desire or your libido is low? How do you balance those two?
Oh, so first off, first and foremost, you have to acknowledge it. Okay. This becomes like, particularly we know with breast cancers that, particularly with supportive partners, they're often in heterosexual relationships not going to complain. They're not going to want to put that pressure. And so unfortunately, breast cancer survivors feel guilty. And then the partners feel guilty. Everybody feels guilty, and then the conversation isn't had. So the first thing is just acknowledging it. You know, that's where it has to start. And then really beginning to explore, okay, because it can't be the one thing I tell everyone, you can't make yourself or you can't make your partner be in the mood more. And unfortunately, that's what your partner's going to ask. What can we do to set the mood? So one, this is where I really tell the person with the lower libido, particularly in this case, if it's the cancer survivor, to really begin to focus on your own self-pleasure. Figure out what is within your boundaries of what you feel to just give to your partner. Again, it may not even be sexual. Could it be cuddling? Could it be giving them massages? Other things that can be erotic and connecting without it being the heavy petting that maybe you're used to if you don't feel comfortable for that, you know? And so it's beginning to actually explore what works for you in giving and receiving. And when there is such a mismatch, this is where I also do think it's important to be clear for each individual to figure out what your personal boundaries are, as well as what the needs are, to begin to actually map that out. Okay. But knowing that it's okay, you know, and that pressure unfortunately exacerbates that gap rather than helps it. Pressure on yourself and as well as pressure from the partner. Does that make sense? I mean, that in and of itself, I will say, is like its own course that I run. So like, it's the biggest, because mismatch desire discrepancy is not just in cancer survivors, that's like the number one problem. That's the number one reason people present in couples therapy, you know, and particularly sex therapy. And so it's super common. And in any long-term relationship, it's going to happen, whether because of cancer or something, there's going to be a moment of mismatch or season. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, like you said, that, you know, having a conversation with your partner is so important in acknowledging that. So, let's see, we have, how do you feel intimate, how to feel intimate touch if your breasts have no feeling and have weird nerve sensations in other parts of your body? So probably like neuropathies from chemo and that kind of thing. So
great question. I mean, one, again, first acknowledge it and also begin to explore. And this is really where I say explore with yourself. Because touch, again, keep in mind that that sensation can unfortunately just be a trigger now too. Like, and that our brain doesn't discriminate between what's a punch versus what's a tap. Okay, it can't always discriminate. Once it's triggered, it's going to have the same reaction. So the first thing is before you actually explore touch, you got to get yourself in a super relaxed mood. Okay, and really set the stage to begin to explore it. And start with the least threatening areas. If you know already your breasts absolutely don't start there. Okay, don't force what used to be or you think has to be erotic to be erotic. It just doesn't have to be. So instead, start with maybe even the least erotic. Start with your hands or your fingers, and particularly with neuropathy, that is going to be your hands and toes. So, okay, so then don't even start there. Start with the backs of your knees. Start with your arms. You know, start with other body parts. And literally, and again, this is where I do think feathers, silk, cashmere, rabbit tails, things that are gentle, start with that. And then even you can do like, you know, those like jade rolls or micro needling rolls, starting with that. Play with different types of touch, different pressure. Different paces, whether you're just touching like this or deeper or gliding, different strokes. This is where you begin to explore. Always start furthest away from what is actually triggering or tingling or painful. Start furthest away from that and then get closer. This is how you also build your confidence and comfort and trust in actually exploring this.
How would you, it does, yeah. I was just gonna say, you know, how would you recommend that people introduce this idea of exploration with their partners. Because like you said, earlier, it can be really hard to have these conversations, and we're kind of
Yep.
talking about things where that's not specifically like the intercourse aspect of things. So how do you get the conversation going about some of these other ways to kind of build that intimacy, or refine and relearn what works for you along with you?
So the first thing is in having this conversation and strategizing, again, you actually got to have sessions around it. Like, you actually got to say, you know what? Instead of going to the farmer's market, how about we just sit on the couch? And again, just start sitting in front of each other. I don't recommend doing these in the bed at first, because again, we want to save the bed for sex and sleep. So don't do things that could be potentially triggering. Just do it. Sit on the couch facing each other. And literally just say, okay, so how about we just start really simple? Because literally most people who have such sensitivity to touch really don't even hold hands even as much, or cuddle as much. So wherever you're at, start where you feel comfortable. That's the first thing. And again, in you actually stating that actually may be news to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
They may not know. They may not have connected. Do not assume that they have connected your avoidance or withdrawal to anything specific. Okay. So now this is your opportunity to say, okay, this is where I'm comfortable with. Let's explore. And again, with a not your breast, not your gynae area. Okay. And actually just say, hey, let's just begin to touch. This is the first step of sensate focus, where you just can guide their hand and maybe even do alphabets with it. And the other thing is actually say, let's just do this for 10 minutes. And if 10 minutes is too long, make a safe container for this. Okay. Play some music, make sure turn your phones off, create a safe space. Okay. This is why, again, I do like creating sacred space bubbles, where you do talk about what your desires, fears, and boundaries are within this, so that you can create this container and this bubble where you can begin to explore it and it feels safe. So really picking a time that is not where the goal is, this is just to explore, making it its own session and having a lot of them. And even as you begin to get back into the game of having, resuming sexual activity, going back to this is your check-in, using this bubble. And this to me is critical. And we know from, if you read the book Magnificent Sex, it's an amazing longitudinal or big qualitative study about what actually does promote in long-term relationships healthy, ecstatic sex. It is doing these regular check-ins, assuming that your sexuality will evolve. Okay.
Thank you. There are a lot of questions about how to feel sexy if you don't like how you look right now.
Yeah.
And
feeling sexy this is so common. I think last year my talk was on body image, and quite honestly, this is the thing. How we feel sexy has been, as women, there's so much pressure on what that has to be. Mm-hmm. So first, it's acknowledging that. It's acknowledging that this is the shit that we grew up with and we live in. It has to just be acknowledging that and just giving ourselves grace. And again, it's meeting yourself where you are. The number of breast cancer patients I have who it's been years since they've slept without a bra. And that's okay. It's meeting yourself where your body is first. And thinking about really what is it that used to maybe make you feel sexy? Did you like to kind of swagger? What was it? Because again, what actual sexy means to you is generally defined by your experience of it. So this is where, again, bringing it back to your connection to your body and experiencing different sensations and actually noting, and this is where the exploration comes up, noting actually what brings the sensations and the emotions and even the tinglings of feeling sexy. Redefining and exploring that for yourself, and then building on that. Okay. Our partners are our kindling, our body is just our container. How we experience sexy is ours to determine. Okay. So it isn't how you look, it is absolutely how you experience. And beginning to actually allow yourself to explore that, you know, that's really where you can begin. And again, that's where it begins on reconnecting with your body so that you can begin to explore these, because actually the avenues of how you do it is so individual. It's so individual. And that's why sometimes I think it's actually hard. And this is why it does help to work with somebody, because we know that these are the things that help, but actually how you do it and how you bring your own alchemy to it, that's your experience. And it is absolutely exploring, touching, experiencing. And what I think of this sensation, just my pure definition, is mine, not yours. Okay. So in sexy and feeling sexy and experiencing ecstasy, that is yours. And how you can experience that. Again, these are all of the ingredients that we know will support it, but it is all about you exploring it and you harnessing it. And so a lot of my work integrates Tantra, and that's what this is about. It's just about harnessing that energy, inviting it and moving it. And that's a practice, and it is a practice, and it's a practice that we have to dance with our bodies, because our bodies are constantly changing. We're constantly making different choices that are going to change the lens through which we experience life. So then how we feel sexy is going to too. But I will say, acknowledging that, again, the way we see our breasts, fertility concerns, all of those things, just acknowledging them and not feeling weak or crazy for thinking it. Knowing that particularly after mastectomies, if you don't like one side of your breast, and particularly if you did love your breasts, acknowledging and actually grieving that. Okay. And then celebrating and going through those different emotions. Yeah.
I think it's really powerful to be able to consider that we can define for ourselves what sexy is and what makes us feel sexy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We got a few more minutes added to our session so that we could get through a couple more questions here. So I have another question. What can I do to increase desire if I'm single and don't have a partner right now?
Okay. So one, enjoy singling. I think that this is a great, there's one of this therapist who wrote a book, Single on Purpose. And, it's really advocating. I feel like, one of the interesting thing is the healthiest demographic. I think a study that got published a year ago or 2 years ago is the healthiest demographic is single women. And so like we're the happiest, the healthiest, longest living. Anyways, but everything I've talked about can be done just with yourself. Everything, even Tantra practices. I personally enjoy practicing on my own rather than with a partner. Our partners are the kindling. And unfortunately, the reality, and people may boo me all they want, but reality is they are more likely to be a distraction than a help. Like, that's just the reality. It is so hard to have synchronous sex that is actually ecstatic, that the reality is, particularly if you have experienced decrease or a significant change, one partner's got to give and one partner's got to receive. So when you are doing a solo practice, it is you who is giving and receiving. You get to make all of those freaking calls. So I say, it is your oyster to play with. I mean, and so That sounded great. But like it is, and so absolutely own it. Own being single. Oh, you don't have to ask permission and you don't have to ask for anything. Choose your vibrators. Take yourself out on dates. Absolutely get yourself, juiced up. You know what actually gets to how you want to be treated. So treat yourself that way and then explore that.
I love that.
I say own it. Yeah.
People loved the comments. Sexy is ours to determine, and what you were saying about it's not about how you look, but how you experience, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like with everything with body positivity has just been amazing, and particularly for women now, I think that but to think that we're that far away, that much has been changed, it's just unrealistic. Like, it's just unrealistic. I actually think that it's gotten worse. Now it's like, now you look at Jane Fonda, who's in her 70s, and now it's like, look how great she looks. I'm like, oh, it's just like, it's too much. It's too much. And so again, this is really where I do think it's about giving yourself a lot of grace and just owning and it really is a practice, because life and society just will literally come in and try to break down the wall of your bubble, and just pop it. And that's just the way life happens. So again, acknowledging it. We don't live in a bubble. So, so it is hard. It's hard to do. And that's why you got to create lots of padding around it. Yeah.
We are getting close on time, but real quick, what are some of your favorite products for pleasure and intimacy? Kind of rapid fire. What would you recommend?
First off, I recommend Pleasure Chest. That's like one of the best sex shops I like. But lube, I really do like Soodle. I've tried a lot of the different lubes. Go to your sex shop and try them now. Now you can go there, see if you like it sticky or not. But a good lube lasts a long way, but don't get it twisted. A lot of lube can be a lot of fun too. Anyways, but so a good lube, I really like Soodle. With different vibrators, now there's so many different things. A lot of people, when they first enter their vibrator journey, start with a little bullet. And this is not judgment at all. Try with whatever feels your fancy, but let's just keep it real. Now, I think that there's a lot of these suctiony ones that also suck and blow air, and they're really focusing on your clitoral head. If you get a lot of stimulation or really aroused from your clitoris, then I highly recommend those. And the Lilo products are generally pretty good. They're on the higher end, but they do last a long time, and they feel pretty, and they're designed pretty well. The Wii products are okay. I don't feel like they're as powerful. And if you are used to a lot, really getting the not the Hitachi, but getting the wand,
I think
it's a classic.
I think thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Catalina.
Yeah. Oh, are we done? Oh.
I don't know. I think so.
Oh. Are we off? I don't know. Megan?
I think so.
You can wrap it up. Oh,
we're still live. That is so great.
All right. Okay.
We got very excited. Well, I just wanted to thank you so much, Dr. Catalina, for being with us tonight and spending your evening with us. Thank you, everyone who came to join the pajama party. We want to remind you that we do start tomorrow morning. It's 10:30 Eastern. I believe we are starting with Zumba, which is a great way to get your body moving and to find some pleasure in your body, I think. So that works really well with what we were talking about tonight. So thank you again. It was great. It was fabulous.
Thank you so much, Marlo. Thanks everybody for showing up for yourselves and showing up for each other. Feel free to reach out, check out my website, or follow me online at Instagram or TikTok. See you guys soon. Take care.
Bye.